Welcome to the Season of Self-Love podcast. I am your host, Nyomi Banks, and I am thrilled to have you join me on this transformative journey. You see, every day we dive into a powerful conversation about self-discovery, healing, and empowerment. This podcast is brought to you by Ask Nyomi and Elevate Me Self-Discovery, where we believe that loving yourself is the first step to living a fulfilling life. You can expect insightful discussions, practical tips, and inspiring stories. Plus, we'll occasionally welcome special guests who will share their unique perspectives on self-love and personal growth. So get comfy, grab your favorite beverage, and let's embark on this journey together. Because it's time to embrace the beautiful person that you are. So let's elevate our lives one episode at a time. Now let's get started. All right, my beautiful people. Well, welcome back to the Season of Self-Love podcast. I am your host, Nyomi Banks, and I am thrilled to have you here as we kick off our new series, New Beginnings. This month is all about exploring fresh starts and finding purpose and embracing the beauty of change, especially when life feels challenged. But before we get into the topic at hand, let's take a quick break. And when we return, we're going to have an amazing guest that's going to show us and share her stories on how to make that change. All right. It's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks here on the Season of Self-Love podcast, and we'll be right back. Hey, it's your girl, Goddess Nyomi Banks, and make sure you tune in every Thursday night to Ask Nyomi Bridging the Gap podcast, where we talk about everything from love, sex, relationship, cultural differences, and so much more. We're bridging the gap between them all, and we even talk about spiritual uplifting. You need to stop by me and Dr. Mike, as well as the BTG group. We have some amazing guests that come through. You never know. Just make sure you tune in Thursday night, 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Go to xnyomi.com and tell them Nyomi sent you.
Washington Wellness Institute focuses on healing always. For me, if I look good, then I feel good. If I feel good, then I share the good. If I share the good, then I celebrate the good. If I celebrate the good, then I live the good. So I can be paid to be my greatest. But I have to learn the good to be the good.
So, what does it take to be the greatest? It's as simple as a free 15-minute consultation. Be kind to yourself and heal always.
All right, well, welcome back to the Season of Self-Love podcast. I am your host, Nyomi Banks, and today we are joined by a truly inspiring guest, Miss Gina. And guess what, Miss Gina? I'm going to try to say this last name. All right, my listeners, look, I've been practicing this for since I know a beautiful young lady is going to come on here. I've been practicing. I even Googled it on how to pronounce this, so I tried to. The spelling is so beautiful, but I wanted to try it myself because I couldn't just go out. Miss Gina, I couldn't go out like that. So at least I'm going to try. It's Economopoulos.
That was close. I'll give you E for effort, they say.
I'll take the E, but could you do the correct pronunciation of it?
Yes, it's Economopoulos.
Oh, that sounds so beautiful coming out of your mouth. It sounds so beautiful.
You. It is. It just flows on my mouth.
It did. It just flowed just right out of there.
It's been my name for so many years, so hopefully by now it's flowing.
Yes, it sounds so beautiful. But I want to speak more on what Miss Gina does. Miss Gina's journey is one of the most profound transformation from a background as their background as a former nun to her work as a certified end-of-life doula. Gina has experienced deep grief, personal challenges, and ultimately healing. Her story reminds us that new beginnings are possible even after loss and trauma. Again, welcome. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh my God, it's so good to be here. Thank you.
Yes.
It's an honor. It's a real honor.
Thank you. And you're welcome. For me, especially coming now that we are going into this new year, in this being the season for me, as I call it, the rebirth, and coming into this journey, I truly believe that it was aligned for you to be here with us today. for this journey. And even just reading your profile on your journey of being a former nun and even being an end-of-life doula, that's something I've never heard before. But what I want to do is I would really want to get into that after we do a nice little guided meditation. And I'm trying to make sure that because I'm ready to jump into the conversation first, but we need to guide ourselves. I need to calm down. I need to center myself because I'm really excited first.
I
All right,
hear
so
you.
right. So my beautiful people, before we dive in, let's take a moment just to ground ourselves. I invite all of you to just close your eyes and begin to take a deep breath, all right? As we begin to take a deep breath in through your nose and slowly exhale out through your mouth. Now, as you continue to breathe deeply, visualize yourself surrounded by creative energy. Imagine this energy sparking new ideas, inspiration, and a sense of abundance around you. Let this creative energy flow through you, helping you embrace each new moment with openness and gratitude. Now take another deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for one moment. Now exhale. Take one more deep breath in. Now out. And when you are ready, gently open your eyes and bring your awareness back to the present moment. All right, my beautiful people, if you are new here to the Season of Self-Love podcast, it's something that we do every day, Monday through Friday here on the Season of Self-Love, just to help ground ourselves before we get into the topic at hand. Ms. Gina, again, thank you so much for joining us today. I know you have such a unique and an inspiring story. Can you start by sharing a bit about your upbringing in an Italian Greek family and how that shaped you?
Yes, I was born in New York on Long Island from one of 8 kids. I'm the 7th child. Very loving. Can't complain about my childhood. My dad was a hardworking Greek, put all of us through college. And, we were brought up with a traditional Catholic upbringing, morals.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I live by, that's what I grew up in. And because it was so impressive of me, of my parents having 8 kids and my mother, being that homemaker, raising kids, not working, but she says that's a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad, being a hard worker, that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to get married when I was 18 and have 8 kids by 25. I don't know if that was possible, but that's the kind of upbringing I was in,
Right.
and but yet I was born with a lot of hip problems. I was born a lot with physical difficulties. So I was very limited in my athletics. And so I was a kid, even though I was loved by my family, and thank God for their love, and especially that unconditional love from my parents, I didn't really like myself. I was very insecure.
Mm-hmm.
I was like trying to fit in, trying to be popular, because I thought, out of all the kids, I was short. I felt I was ugly. My sisters were so beautiful, so I kept comparing to my sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And my brother, my younger brother, my mom had him when she was 49 years old, and he was beautiful. Not to say I didn't think I was beautiful. Of course, my parents thought I was beautiful, but when you see when you see your siblings running and you couldn't run because I was born with a hip dislocation, I had many surgeries when I was a kid. I was born with this bone tumors, like all these things that they were taken care of. It wasn't like my parents didn't take care of that,
Right.
but for my own self, I felt inadequate. I felt insecure. like I said earlier, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be popular. So throughout my childhood and even in my high school years, I was trying to,
Yeah.
be that,
Mhm.
be like my sisters, do the best I could, even though I couldn't run. I was like the sports fan, trying to have people like me, trying to be that popular kid. But at the same time, everyone did love me because I was cute, little.
Mhm.
I just didn't think that. And it was just, everyone called me Gina Lola Brigida. I was like, oh, look at her, like this. And I didn't have all the guys at my door. I didn't have, like I said, I wasn't a famous basketball player like my siblings were. And so, but so that's how my childhood was. It wasn't bad at all. I kind of, in my heart of hearts, I was just this kid, poor low self-esteem. I mean, I guess
Mhm.
everybody has it. You talk about a
Yeah.
kid like, what kid doesn't? But you know, I really didn't. I didn't have a great esteem for myself. So I try to get into the crowds, go, fit into the crowds of different crowds, the drinking crowd, those who are smoking pot, whatever. And I'm thinking, this is it, this is it. And also, I was a unique individual. I just couldn't find my place
Mhm.
in life. I couldn't find my place within. If anything, I try to be the people pleaser or try to be the popular person, or I would drink because I feel like, okay, now I'm the popular crowd, I'm the attention grabber, like that. And so it kind of, that's what it started like in my childhood. But I think, like, once again, I thank God for my parents because they kind of carried me through. To me, they were God. Yes, we were raised Catholic, but by the time I went to college, it was like, let's do the college
Yeah.
party, which everyone does.
Mhm.
But I mean, I really did the college party. Like, I didn't go, I barely got my degree, but that's fine. I mean, I was just looking for a school to have fun. I was just seeking for that acceptance and love, and you
Yeah.
find it in all the wrong places. If you remember that song,
Yeah.
Love. I mean, I could have wrote it, but I didn't. But that's all right.
So how did you get into none? Now, where did that go there? Like that you
I
made a
know.
nice little right. Like how did you make that
I,
right?
I made like a three. Not a right. It was like right, right, right. But well, okay. I graduated from college. I got a degree in social work. I went to go live with my parents. Now at this time, they moved to Pennsylvania and the outskirts of Harrisburg. Went to go live with them. I was like, oh God, I got to live with my. Not that I got to, but it was a place for me to go. And I thank God. I thank God. But yet I was in the mentality of a college, theme party. So what did I do with a social work degree? And I was a very good pool player. I was a pool shark in college. That I became a bartender. So I was like, okay, this is my life. Once again, this is my life. I'm bartending, and I'm a pool shark and got it all. And then and it was like social work, people come in, they give you your problems.
Right.
You talk to them and you don't deal with the government, you don't deal with paperwork. It's like, I'm not a paperwork. Me and paperwork do not like each other. So it's like, okay. And back then it was paperwork. Now me and computers will not like each other. But so anyhow, so here I am doing. So now I have another dream of my life that I was going to be on the cruise ship. So here I wanted to be a Julie McCoy. Just to have that hospitality. I have a personality plus. So it's like, okay, now I don't have a boyfriend. I really don't have a job, and I'm just searching. And I said, okay, I'll do hospitality. I'll travel the world. I love to travel. So yes, I could be a bartender, whatever in that. And so that was my plan. And, but then yet during that plan or during that time, my mom back in 91 was diagnosed with bone cancer. She was given 4 to 6 months to live. And I happened to be at home with here I'm with my dad. My younger brother, Stephen, went off to college for freshman. He was only 17.
Mm.
And so during those 5 months, because my mom died 5 months later, and
Mm.
that totally changed my world. That totally gave me a 360-degree turn, whatever you want to say it. I totally died at that time, because of all my hopes and dreams of doing this, and here taking care of my mom and trying every possible means to keep her alive and healing. But like I said, she had bone cancer. So it just went, she was just in pain, and I didn't know much. And then, of course, at that time, I came back to prayer. I wasn't a prayerful person, came back to prayer. My mother, being that Italian faithful, because my parents worked about, bring out the rosary beads, bring out the novenas. And I'm like, okay, this is going to heal my mom, whatever these things are, whatever. And go back to church and like this. And like, yep, this is it. Because I'm inviting God back in my life. And this is it. Well, like I said, she didn't, the doctors were right. She died in those 5 months. And then, so after that, I died. And then I went on another, I'm always searching, right? Like searching for love or searching to be fit in somewhere. So here, this time I was searching for the meaning of life. I was searching because on my mom's wake, everyone kept saying, oh, your mom is with God. Your mom is in heaven. I'm like, who is this God person? Not that I didn't believe, not that I know there was a God, but I really didn't, I didn't have a relationship or anything. I didn't need him. Maybe that was it. Like I was sort of like in my own little world of trying to fit in, trying to be loved and everything like that. So as I was doing this searching after my mom died, I did go back to the church, and I went into the church and I said to God, I said, everybody says, God, you're here and that my mom's with you, but I don't want to talk to you. So you leave the church and I'll talk to my mom. And that's how I was. That's exactly, I grieved. Grief was my best friend. I was shot. So I was searching. And then there was a moment as I'm talking about searching by going to churches, going to different pilgrim sites, like this, praying the rosary, whatever. My cousins were very active, says, come back, come to the church. And then I had, like one would say, like a conversion, a St. Paul conversion, you fall off the horse, like, there's a light, there's a God. So, and that's where, when I had that kind of, you would say, a conversion of realizing that, Jesus died for me, which I should have known years ago, but I didn't. In that, I became a nun. I was searching again, okay, now Jesus died for me. I'm on this crusade of everybody's going to hell, whatever, go from bartending. And then like saying, yeah, God loves me, God loves you, but you go to, not this, I didn't really say that, but, but that was sort of like on that crusade of like, okay, now I'll give my life to God. Yeah, that's it. That's I connected, I met these Franciscan orders of sisters and friars, and I'm like, wow, all these young people, they have they're loving God and they're giving their life to God. Yeah, that's me. And everyone loved me because, everybody wanted Gina somewhere, because I always smiled, but my insides, Nyomi, was always broken. There was always an emptiness. So I'm thinking, okay, I'll be a nun, and I did. I joined a Franciscan order in the Bronx of New York back in 1997. And so this is it. This is my life, this is all new to me. Like I said, everybody loved me. Everybody loved Sister Regina. I did, we worked with the poor. So I loved working with the evangelization. I love that. I love people. But then as time went on, I was there for 12 years. And it turned out that, I had matter of fact, I wrote my memoir, my book. So I wrote this all in my book. So I'm like, I am an open book. It was just published this past August, but in it, just to make it short and sweet, I struggled. I suffered a lot. I felt rejected. At the end of my 12 years, I got kicked out. I personally felt like I got kicked out. It's that's a story in itself, but it's in my book. To make, I'm trying to find the simplest way and the kindest ways that, I was going in one direction. My spirit is in one direction, and they are such a new order, and they were going in this direction, and we just didn't clash, if that makes sense. We just, but in the long run, it wasn't God's will. As much as I could say, it was there, it wasn't God's plan for me. It wasn't God's plan, but I did not really know that at the time. But I went through a lot of pain, a lot of suffering. I was in a deep, dark place. And by the time I left there, I left there, like I said, 12 years later, my personality was crushed. I was totally like, I was flat. I was flatlined just about, but I'm going to have to back up because the last 2 years of being there, that's when they had told me that they needed some time away from me. So they sent me away. So I was sent away the last 2 years of my religious life in different places just to try to get help. Because one thing about me is if you give me a couch, I'll sit on that couch and I'll tell you all my problems. I'll just spit it out or, whatever it may be. So that's how I, entered the convent. That's why I became a nun. And then at the end, after those, like the last 2 years, just trying so hard. And in those 2 years, I kind of had like another new life, another renewal in my mind, in my heart. And I thought I would continue to be a nun, like using my gifts, because at this point I'm in final vows. So it's like a marriage. I'm wearing a ring. I gave my life, gave up everything. But then at the end of those 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears, I would say, trying so hard to fit in, that they said to me that I didn't belong there anymore. So I was like, what? I mean, for 12 years, I've been here. Now you're telling me, and for all that long, you're saying that I do belong here. So, but anyhow, once again, it was God's plan, and it was like the best thing for me. But when we're in those situations, you're like, you don't even realize, how, the light around you. You don't realize how, it was the best thing. It was the best thing, for everything. So I did. So when I left the convent, I'm now living in the world. One would think this is my new life,
Right?
because my life as a sister was austere. I slept on the floor. We lived on divine providence. We didn't have a couch, all that, we lived a simple life, the vows of obedience, poverty, and chastity, so that's how I lived. So now I come into the world, and I'm about in my 40s. And at that point, I said, okay, I got to begin my new life again, or something new. God, what do you want from me?
Right.
I mean, it's like a divorce. I was like, you called me and now you're calling me out. Like I couldn't understand all this.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I knew friends who ran a home for men and women with disabilities. So they invited me to be like a den mother, like a house mother there. And I was like, okay, like I'm just like existing. I'm like, okay, I'll do that. And that was that was the best thing for me, because it was a transition time.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about the world. I mean, this was 2008. I couldn't even tell you who were the rock stars back then, or who was the popular. I mean, and I had to relearn. I had to relearn how to, you name it, have relationships. I had to relearn how to, do wash, so to speak, and how to use a washer or a dry. I mean, I had to use a phone at that time. I was like, so I had, I had to relearn how to dress. Because whenever I would dress, I would always look like one of those nuns, like without, because I wore a habit. So I would always, gravitate to the gray or to the black or to the white. And one time I had a friend who was helping me, and I went out without her, and I said, I'm going to go get my own shoes. So I went, I picked these shoes out, and I called her, and I said, I want you to see them. And she says, well, buy them, bring them over, and I'll let you know. I didn't get them out of the box. And she goes, none of that. Those are nun shoes. I was like, okay. She's like, take them back. I don't know. Don't even put them on the floor for me, So I was like, oh, really? And so I did that for 2 years. I'd done that for 2 years, thinking that was my life. But the end of those 2 years, I was tired. I was tired of serving, helping people, because by trade I have a heart. I mean, I do have a heart of service, and I'm also a people pleaser, which could be good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
but yet, I just wanted, at this point, I was like in my, like in my 40s now. And I'm like, I want to do what Gina wants to do. I'm tired. I'm just so tired. By now, of course, I'm not married. I have not, there was nothing I could say I have. Never had gotten a job or anything. And so I just kept trudging along. I just kept plugging along. So Gina did what Gina wanted to do. And she always loved the water. She loved the beach because that's a serene place. That's where heaven and earth meets. That's how I feel. And so I decided to come to the Jersey Shore here. And I'm like, okay, now what do I do as a job? I didn't want to serve. I didn't want, of course, nobody really knew I was a nun. I was kind of keeping that hidden because nobody would hire you. And especially nobody would date you, which I would tell all these guys, oh yeah, I was a former nun, and they will never call me again. Like I didn't know. I didn't know. So here I'm at the Jersey Shore, and my dad being so, like I said, so gracious and was with me through it all, that he helped me get a winter rental, which had furniture, because I don't, I didn't know what to do at all, sign bills at all. And, I learned that. And so I decided to go back to bartending because that's the only thing I knew how to do. Mm-hmm. So, okay, another new life. How many new lives have I had so far? Like thinking, yes, I'm bartending, and yes, this is it. And I'm going to finally try to find my niche in life, or what in life, whatever. I had no idea. So then I when I started bartending, within a month, I met a guy, and his name was Danny. And so we were friends. So mind you, this is 2 years after the convent. So I didn't leave, everyone would say, oh, did you leave a guy? No. It was 2 years later. And of course, I didn't tell him I was a nun. And eventually I did. He was a retired cop. And we started liking each other. And so once again, I had to call my friend Terry. How do I date? I didn't know. What do I do? Should I tell him I was a nun? No, don't do that just yet, So I'm like, oh yeah, I was a social worker. But then eventually I did. I didn't scare him. He didn't said, okay, no problem. And because there was such a love down there, like we fell in love with each other. But then I come to find out a few weeks later that he was an alcoholic. And I was like, okay. Yeah. And it didn't really scare me because I really didn't know what an alcoholic was, so to speak. Well, I should say, I always thought they were, I hate to say it, I thought they were guys under the bridges with a bag in their hand. You know what I mean? Like, that. A guy, usually a guy homeless, someone like that. Yeah. That's an alcoholic, not a cop, or not this person, And so at the time, he said he was an alcoholic. He was drinking at the time when I met him because he came into the bar. So, I mean, I didn't realize that. And he was, he liked me. I liked him. And I just encouraged him to stay sober. He encouraged me to go to a step 12 program called Al-Anon, which is a family program for AA. And so I did. And yeah, I'm like, okay, this is good. Okay, God, Danny loves me, heal him. This is it. Another searching a prayer. Like we want to live together. We want to get married, and, right. And I would support him anywhere. I mean, I would not want to be with him when he's active, but when he was sober, he was a great man, just simply sick. And he did find sobriety, out in Arizona. So once again, and he said, would you come out to Arizona? I said, yeah, sure, I will. That's, definitely. I would say, I'll go anywhere with you in Timbuktu, wherever it keeps you sober, because, I found when he was sober, he was just everything you would want. I wanted in a guy, someone who loved me for me. And then, of course, I learned more about the disease. And so he went, he came back to the Jersey Shore to pick up his stuff, take a drive to bring his stuff back. And he invited me to go along for the ride. And I said, I got to work, but I'll come in a month. You get settled. So he invited his mom. So they're driving cross country, happy. This is like the best thing ever, when a man finds sobriety, or a woman. It's like, yeah, doing the next right thing and driving with my mom, so excited, his mom. And but then they got into a tragic car accident in Indiana. His mom died on impact and burned up. Danny burned up. And it's that one morning on July 12th, 2012, that you get that 360-degree turn saying, Danny's in the hospital. That's like you can't go back. And so it's like, oh my God. So thinking that he would die, but yet he survived, but he was burned from the head down. He happened to see his mother burn up and die during this. And so I uprooted myself from New Jersey and went out to Indianapolis to be with him, to take care of him. I'm a great caregiver at the same time. But yet I'm like, okay, you're sober, Danny, this is going to keep you sober, why not? And I was still unfamiliar with the disease and, AA and all that. And I'm thinking, okay, God, look at this. And, but then when we got settled there, of course, they reached out to the AA fellowship out there, and they were so kind to us. A handful of them, mostly a lot of them, was reaching out because we didn't know anyone. We're in this corn country, or corn state, not a country, right. But not knowing anyone, not having anything. His mom, like this, and so, but we did, friends brought us in, the fellowship brought us in, and he was sober, and then lo and behold, what does an alcoholic do when they're in so much pain? And especially seeing your mom burn up and die, and especially, like, I didn't realize it. What does a good alcoholic do? They pick up a drink, because they run away from that emotion. Yeah. They run away. It's horrific. It's a horrific disease. So of course, when he picked up, I had no concept, and I was like, beside myself. I was manipulating him. I was fear. I was like, I kicked him out in Indianapolis, not having like that compassion or that understanding, like he was burnt of what he saw, anything. Well, it doesn't matter, but that's who I was at the time. That's how I was. And so I kicked him out. But at the same time, we were, trying to be talking, and we did set a date to get married. This is when, and I'd still marry him because I knew he was a great guy. And I'm like, God, you could do anything. But then a month before our wedding day, he died. I found him found him dead in his apartment, because I had kicked him out prior to that, and he found his own apartment, which was a block up, and come to find out nobody was hearing from him. And I went, and that's a story in itself. But yet, then at that point, I had no life. At that point, I was shot. I was dead myself. I was simply existing. I did not know anything, really. I was just like, I was tired. I was tired of life. I was tired with God. A few months after his death, I did come back to visit my sister, who lives upstate New York. I was with her, and all I did was cry. I didn't have any life. I didn't have nothing. And she said, why don't you write everything out? And so I was writing everything out, and I write out all that pain, the emotions, what I went through with Danny, and what he died, and his story, and then all the pain from the sisters came up, like all this pain and suffering and whatever, rejection, everything that has happened to me, blow by blow. Like I really never saw it, like in a way, I was in it, but I never saw it on the outside. And so then, after he died, like I said, I was dead. And then I came back to the Jersey Shore, and I didn't know what to do. I did get a job. I was grieving again, another loss. And then at this time, once again, what is Gina good at? She's good at not searching. She's not good at it because she hasn't found any place to belong. And that's where I started my searching again. And where did I search? I went into the rooms of these AA meetings, because I just wanted to find out why some people get sobriety and Danny didn't. I was just I was like, I would go to these rooms and see these men and women, from all backgrounds, being sober 30 years, 10 years. And I'm like, how did you get it? And he did it. You know what I mean? Like I just couldn't have the concept, but I was invited to come into these rooms. I did not identify myself as an alcoholic because that was furthest from my mind. Right. Remind you, I was Gina, the cute little Gina Economopoulos, with the sister. How could she be an alcoholic? No, like this. And so, but anyhow, as time went on, because I would go in, identify myself, the desire not to pick up, but somebody approached me and says, Gina, you come to these meetings all the time. I know you're angry, because I was totally angry with everyone. I was angry with life. I was angry with God. I was angry with myself. And then they asked me a question. They said, what's your relationship with alcohol? Oh, no, not me. I don't have a problem. But sure enough, Nyomi, I'm an alcoholic. I realized that I belong. I realized. So on April 2nd, 2015, God willing, this coming year, I will have 10 years of sobriety. But right now I have just for today. And I know you had shared with me that this is a new life month, a new life year. Rebirth, and yes. And I know every day for me it's like a new life, because I try to make it as something new, yes. Growing new. But at the same time, I really found my new life 9 years ago when I said I was an alcoholic, not realizing realizing I was going to find a new life. Because when I had said I was an alcoholic, I was like, where did that come from? All the pain, all the hurts, all the rejection that I was carrying from, all my insecurities, all my hatred for myself and for others that I carry as a child, as coming up, throughout the system, whatever. And Danny, it just opened up. Yeah. And I was like one big open wound. Yeah. And what you do with a wound is like, oh my God, if someone throws salt on it, it just was just painful. Yeah. It was more painful. And then in the rooms, what I've learned is, we learn the steps, we learn the program, we learn to take it one day at a time. And I was like at that moment, but at that pain, because in hindsight, I would drink away that pain. In hindsight, I ran away from that pain. In hindsight, I denied it was in denial. No, like this. In hindsight, I created this false identity within myself. I had two identities. There was the Gina and there was the false self, the smiling one. But meanwhile, the real Gina inside was so lonely, was so hurt, and was so broken that as time went on through all these challenges in my life and these walls I hit and knocked down, whatever it may be that God carried me through, I landed into the rooms of AA. I realized, hey, I'm an alcoholic, like I said. So that moment, I knew I couldn't go to a drink, or I knew I couldn't go to my couch, a pity couch, or look at me. I could be a great victim, like look at me, self-pity. Oh my God, it was my best friend. But then yet I had to stand and learn the program, learn the tools. I had to reconnect with a higher power who I choose to call God. This is part of the program. And then in that, like all that, it's like, oh my God, I got a new life today. I got a better life today. I have like an awesome, I'm in freedom today. Because by the time I came into the rooms of AA, or without even realizing, I always share with people or describe myself. Yes, I might have been smiling or frowning on the outside, but my insides was a concrete wall. My insides, throughout the years, it got thicker and thicker, that there was no light. It was just dark. It was cold and it was wet, and that there was no doorway to leave. And honest to God, I thought that was my life forever from that moment forward. I thought, this is my life. My life is to be miserable. My life is just to, live this self-pity life and let everyone else have the blessings, let everyone else have the joy. but then yet when I came into the rooms and realizing, okay, this could be the source of my whole problem, my whole life, because in hindsight, I could probably use the program 20 years ago, but I didn't. That I'm like, now, one day at a time, and using these tools and being honest, open and willing, that the wall inside me, got knocked down. And I was like, oh my God, there's a window in my heart, oh, there's a door, there's sunshine, there's a meadow. That's how I see myself. I'm very, and that's how I share myself on who my being was. And then I also look back and see, wow, it's the same God that's been with me throughout my whole life. Yeah, but I never realized it. I'm a late bloomer, late, but thank God that I'm alive to share that and to say that. Like, so today I just love what you talked about, the new life, because my life today, I'm able to participate in life. I'm able to be part of life. I'm able to experience life on life's terms. And I'm not saying it's a perfect life, because life brings challenges. And that's another thing I realized, that life goes on with me, without me. Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, no. Life is all about me, at one time. But and in that, challenges do come, grief does come, life comes, the good, the bad, and the indifferent, or the ugly, or whatever one say. But now today, I use it as these challenges. I use it as a new growth, because every day is new for me.
Yes.
Tools, growing closer to my higher power, who I choose to call God, and that, like I've experienced that freedom. Oh boy, I feel free inside. Before I was not free, and I'm talking about insides. Of course, I can be free on the outside, and I also realized with fear could paralyze your freedom, and fear paralyzed me my whole life, until, and even sometimes today, fear likes to creep in. I'm like, no, I got faith, faith over fear. Yeah. And I also learned that it's okay to feel, feelings, and it's okay to be angry. And I learned about these, it's okay, but I have the choice today, and I have that new freedom in me, or that new life in me, to say, hey, what am I going to do with it? I could go to prayer with it. I could speak to someone else. I could go to a meeting. I could go to a church. What are my tools that help me today to live in a healthy solution of now living my new life? Because like I said to you, I thought I had a new life throughout my life, but it wasn't that new. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like all new lives. It was it always was tragedy and victim and self-pity and poor me. Now I'm living a new life, and now I live in a healthy, try my best my best ability to live my new life today in the most healthiest way. And that's what I love. And one of my tools is what you have done before this meeting began, was that meditation. Breathing. And I love that. Pausing before reacting. I mean, not that I'm good at it, but these are seeds that are planted in me, the good seeds. And with God's grace, and with my openness, and one day at a time, He allows it to grow at His will and His time. And that's where I am in today. So, once again, I look back in my life. Yes, it was a lot of trials and tribulations, but it's all been a gift for me, because it's a person who I am today. I look back on my life with Danny, falling in love and being with Danny, and Danny bringing me into the rooms, but that was his story. And I thank God, Danny, and his passing too. And now today I do have a new guy in my life. I know Danny brought him in my life, who's in the program. He works his program. I work mine. We work it together. There are, ups and downs, of course, but we're both sober, and we both try to help each other to keep growing, not only in our sobriety, but in our relationship, and to grow in this new life we have, individually and together.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. First of all, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for sharing your whole story. I didn't even get any questions in because you was answering all the questions.
Oh, I'm so
you,
sorry.
you
You could have.
told me, you said, give me a couch and I would tell you my whole story. And you had the couch.
Oh, Naomi, forgive me. I was
No
looking for
problem.
some cues on you. Like, I'm like,
No
okay.
problem, love, because as you were talking, you were answering all of the questions that I had down here. You were answering all the questions that I had. There were a few questions that I was just thinking in my head that I hadn't written down. You know, just hearing your story, I was like, oh my goodness, just just having that back and forth feeling of I don't want to say regret, but rejection from would feel like it was from God. And I was like, and I hope that she didn't think that that rejection was from God when they put her out of the, I don't know, you call it the
The
convent or
convent.
whatever.
Yeah.
When they put her out there, I hope that she know that that was a part of her journey. And I hope that she know, and I just kept saying as you were talking, this is before you got to the end, as you were talking, I'm like, I really pray that she know,
Yeah.
that this was a part of her journey, that she understand. And then when you came to Daniel, I was like, okay, what's going to happen with Daniel? And so, you kind of kept me like, I'm watching a movie in my head. Sorry, listeners. I'm just like y'all. I'm watching a movie in my head and she's telling the story. And I'm on like, okay, like, oh, okay, what's going to happen to Daniel? Like, oh my God, like, come on. Like, God, please just let her see a lesson in a life. Because, I always say that things happen for a reason. And then the lessons that we happen through these reasons that the things are happening, what lessons have we learned in them? And as you continue to talk and you like, what is this, God? Like, what am I trying, such and such. But then I love when you said, when you walked into that AA room and you kept going back and back, not knowing why you're going back, you trying to figure out why Daniel didn't get it. Why Daniel didn't get it. You trying to ask why Daniel didn't get it. You go in there, you're like, oh, wait a minute, I'm the alcoholic. I'm the reason why I'm in here. But not only that, but it leads you to do other things. It leads you to be on platforms like this where you are truly speaking your truth. Because there are a lot of people that are walking around here, they're not able to see their truth because they can't see it because they can't see a likeness of them. Does that make sense?
No, it does. Yes,
Yeah.
it does make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and that's the passion of my heart. And I just love sharing because one of my purposes, and that's why I wrote my memoir, so there's a lot more details of what I shared, but it's also to send that message of strength and hope.
Beautiful.
Yes, there is light. Don't give up.
Yeah.
You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. And yes, did I feel rejected by God? I felt rejected by the community.
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I was kind of hanging on to God. And I did. But then when Danny died, I hated God because I was like, okay, I did so much. But then in hindsight, yes, what I've learned is God's rejection is God's protection.
Ooh.
Today. So I've learned that and I practice that today because we always have that feeling of rejection, I mean, and I'm like, no, because God's protecting me from this or whatever it may be. So yes, I mean, today it's like it's much better.
Yeah.
And I just pray and hope other people like your listeners or those I cross paths with and say, don't give up. Your path may not be similar as mine. Not everyone's an alcoholic, but there's that peace. And that's what I've learned is that we all have a peace within us that we deserve to have.
Yes.
Whether what age we become aware of it, and it's there. And if we keep plugging along, whether it's through grief or something, just getting up and doing, and there's so many resources out there you could get help from, from yourself, from the church, whatever it may be. It doesn't matter, the breathing exercises, whatever. You just keep doing it. Then all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's a light, and you'll find that niche and you'll find that comfort zone. And the thing is, you get comfortable. But of course, I know for myself, God wants you more comfort, keeps challenging you to say, do you trust me? How much do you trust me? It's like, how far will you go? How far you will go? Well, I did enough. No. How far would you go? I mean, and for me, it becomes like a one-to-one heart-to relationship with my higher power, with God. It ain't easy, it's challenging. It's building like any kind of marriage, you have to build any kind of relationship.
Exactly.
And the key thing is to be honest. And I can be honest.
And that's beautiful. And I truly do. We have to wrap up the show, but I enjoyed your story. I enjoyed just sharing it with us here today. It has been truly amazing. Your resilience, your compassion is very inspiring. And for all those that are listening here, I want you to remember, we didn't say Gina's book, but her name of her book is called Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk. What an amazing title that is. Shake the Dust Off Your Feet and Walk is available right now. I highly recommend it for anyone needing encouragement and hope. And I hope today's episode reminded you that even in our darkest moment, that there is potential for light, healing, and new beginnings. And if you feel moved by Gina's story, please share your thoughts with us in the comments and on social media. And let's keep the conversation on self-love and healing going. Again, thank you for tuning in to the Season of Self-Love podcast. As always, keep loving on yourself. And remember, this is all about the year of the rebirth and new beginnings. And again, we will have all of Gina's information in our show notes. And are there any last words? Got to be real quick, Gina.
Just you're all in our prayers. And if nobody told you that he loved you today, I do.
I know that's right. Again, thank you, my beautiful people. Until next time, have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on this journey of discovery and empowerment here at the Season of Self-Love podcast. Remember, embracing self-love is a continuous journey, and we're so glad to have you with us. So if you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review. And don't forget to join our community on Facebook at Season of Self-Love. Connect with like-minded individuals who are also on their self-love journey. Now, if you have any questions or topics that you'd like for us to explore, we love to hear from you. Email us at seasonofselflove@gmail.com and let your voice be heard. So until next time, take a moment for yourself today and remember, you are worthy of love, joy, and all the beautiful things that life has to offer. Have a good one.